Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rouge Rugby podcast. My name is Dan Murphy, and with me always is Derek Brissett and Stu Hardy. And gentlemen, we've got an exciting guest. Before we get started, I just want to kind of make a little mention that our friends at the Iroquois Roots Rugby are fundraising for their 2022 season. If you'd like to help contribute to their growth and to an amazing program that's doing a lot of good to a community that is, going through an extremely tough time, they have a GoFundMe set up. So we'll have the link in our bio for this episode, and also we've been sharing some of their posts about it. So feel free to donate if you're able to. Gentlemen, we have another amazing guest. This is his second time on the show. Bryan Ray, thank you for joining the show once again.
Thanks for having me. I decided to bring my video along this time, so special occasion.
And we appreciate taking time. I know you said before the show that you're kind of on kind of cruise control because of work and stuff like that. So we appreciate this. Guys, I don't want to bring up this match because it just seems to kind of blend in with all the Arrows losses. But I feel like before we get into the meat and the potatoes of this episode, let's talk about the Arrows loss to RUNY. And I want to get your guys' thoughts on this, Bryan and Derek and Stu, because to me, watching this game, it just felt like almost every other match that they've been kind of having, except for maybe the Austin loss, where things were even worse in that game. A lot of problems in the start of the game with handling and discipline, and they kind of make it a close game, but the opposition kind of takes it away at the end. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on, did we see anything different in this game other than Sam Malcolm coming back?
I think one of the things to mention is that New York is still in the fight for the playoffs, and they still have a game in hand compared to Atlanta. They've also got NOLA chomping at the bit as well. There was more for them to get the bonus point win than just what you could say like the pride for Toronto to upset their season. I think everyone did well. I think one of the biggest points of concern was probably about like the 20-minute, 30-minute mark. I was just looking at the Arrows players, and they were like heads in the hands on their heads. They were like breathing heavily, and especially as soon as Sam Malcolm came on, you could see that he was active, ready to go. He had like this energy around him, and he was the only one. He was like the bright spark against players that have been dulled and numbed by this never-ending road trip. And I think that's, and we can talk about what needs improving, what needs this needs to end. I think as soon as the players can get home and back with their families and back to a sense of familiarity, they're going to be much better. Even some of the players that will, either through injury, but we'll get to that part later about international tours. If they get called up for Canada duty due to whatever reason, I think they'll be much better then than they will be now. Although I say one thing that does need improving is getting an ambulance on time. I think that needs improving. And referees and assistant referees that can tell if a ball's been grounded or not. Because, as soon as that Kakabalavu try happened, because you could see like John Sheridan's expression after.
Yeah, he thought he made the play.
No, he did make the play. The refs didn't, and everyone was in like a bit of a shock about that. And I think that may have been just like another thing that goes on, as in like they're already tired, they're already fatigued, and then a clear non-try is awarded as a try, and they're like, right, this game's out of our control. That's fine. We've got another 60 minutes to go. Let's try and limit the damage as much as we can. And to be fair, they did, leave with a losing bonus point, which I feel has now become the crux of every Arrows loss this season at this point. But yeah, it wasn't easy, especially watching like the replays of that try. It just wasn't a good thing to watch. But we don't have TMO, so I can't blame the refs too much. They only had that one chance to look at it, and but I think it was the New York's fourth try where his name escapes me at the moment. But he ran through the defense.
Benassa?
Wasn't tackled. Yeah, Benassa, and ran through. No one around him, no one to get near him. Straight under the post, 7-pointer after an earned try, I'd say, through Ben Foden, and then just to have that immediately 2 minutes later come around. Just another knife to the heart. And I will say great credit to Mike Shepherd being able to snipe over for that 7-pointer just before on the stroke of half time, just to keep everything in. But it just feels like the Owls are just clawing back at everything going against them at this moment. And it does seem to be that a lot of these things are out of their control, essentially the being in Atlanta. I'm just looking forward to round 17 when it's approaching their bye week and they say, right, we send one last night at the hotel, or for the Argentinian players at their temporary homes with their families. Everyone gets on a plane, depending on what the border situation is going to be. It's either going to be fly to Buffalo and then get a coach from Buffalo to all the players' houses so that they can spend time with family, or if the because I know there's now the no quarantine for fully vaccinated people, and I believe that all the players and staff are fully vaccinated.
So there's definitely options for them. Bryan, I'm curious, as you can tell, we're a little bit beaten down about talking about some of these Arrows losses. How did you feel this one kind of stacks up against some of the other losses that they've had recently?
Stu kind of touched on a lot of stuff there, and I don't think there's a lot of huge disagreements. Certainly that the ambulance issue at the beginning was a bit shambolic, but that applies to both teams. They both I didn't feel that New York were at their best either, and they certainly had some tired bodies out there. I actually thought some of the new guys did bring a little bit of new energy out there. Certainly we saw Ronan Foley come in last week, and again this week he's added a little bit of energy. But the issue you have when you're bringing in guys this late in the season is they've got to get up to speed on all the set pieces and all the moves and all the patterns pretty quickly. A guy like Sam Malcolm, he's been there before, that helps. But you've got when we saw Joe Tomlinson come in, I mean, this is a quality player. He was very highly rated in Wales. A lot of the Welsh rugby aficionados over there, I think he was very unlucky not to get a Cardiff Blues cap at the professionals. So, but he came in and he had energy, but his throws were off. He wasn't quite there. I mean, he got over the line and then he dropped the ball, which would have been a certain try. Just these little things where he's maybe trying a little bit too much just to come in and join and make an impact. So I think another week with those guys in and around the squad will kind of calm their nerves a bit. We'll see a bit more from them this weekend. So that's kind of something that was a takeaway for me from that game. The guys who've been around all season obviously look exhausted. They're ready to tap out at this point. And easy to see why. So, it's just one of those games. That Bonasso try, by the way, was just awful. That to me was one of the worst tries of the season that the Arrows have conceded. Just a gaping hole in the midfield. That should never happen. The cover defense was asleep.
I'm pretty sure after that, Taylor Adams was subbed off.
He came off. He actually went down hurt, I think, in that play just before that. But there were guys coming across, they just didn't have the legs to catch him. And you can't have a 6'4" back row forward sprinting 60 odd meters untouched down the middle of the park. I mean, that's just not acceptable.
It's like watching something from a nature film.
It was bad. So when that happened, I knew it was over. It was done. And the referee call, I don't think it's an argument for TMO. I think that's just a horrifically butchered call by the officials. You got it. There are three sets of eyeballs, and not one of them could see that. It's not like it was a big pile of bodies either. It was a guy walking in untouched, touching the ball down. It wasn't even close to a grounding. For the AR to say that he saw the grounding was ludicrous. But the referee has to take responsibility for that himself. He should have been in position. And I mean, it was so blatant. The AR on the far side of the field should have had a perfect line of sight to say, hey, wait a minute, guys, let's have a chat about this, because this was clearly not a try. So, it's just a frustrating game, but that's the way the season has gone.
And I want to get into kind of this season, because it has been a really no good, bad day season for the Arrows. And I want to get your thoughts about this, Bryan, is how do you feel when Chris Silverthorne and Bill Webb sit down at the end of the season and they go, okay, what did we have from this season? What do you think they're going to think? Because, the record isn't great, but they survived. I think that's maybe one way of looking at it. How do you feel about kind of the Arrows' growth into this year?
That's going to be a tough conversation, because let's be honest, it's been a crap season. You can look at the game they played against New York and Jersey City, and the game they played against Old Glory, and you're like, this is the Arrows. I mean, this is the guys that we expected to see this year. This is why we were saying before the season that these guys are title contenders. Those are the Arrows that we saw last year. But that's a massive psychological toll, and only the guys who are down there experiencing and really know the effect of that.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to take that into account when you're looking at doing your end of season review, and they're just going to have to decide, player X, didn't really perform this season. What percentage of that is him just not being able to deal with this crazy road trip? And I mean, Chris Silverthorne himself has talked about struggling. So it's not like the coaches or the staff weren't affected as well. So that's just something that they're going to have to decide and look ahead to next year and say, hey, is this guy, are we going to back this guy to rebound next season in a proper year when we finally get to play games in Toronto? Or are we going to have to make a legitimate change here?
Yeah, I think, man, I feel like the season's just been super weird. Obviously, I think going into the year, there was that championship expectations. And I think, even watching this game this past week against RUNY, obviously the Kakabalavu try is a point of contention. But I think
I'm gonna stop you guys 1 second and give you a little lesson in Fijian here, guys.
Sure.
So in the Fijian language, a C is a TH. So his name is actually Vakambalavu. So if you're talking about, say Joe Roko Coco for the All Blacks, it's actually Joe Roko Thoko. And for England, it's Thoka Nasinga is how his name is. So there's your lesson for the day. So it's not a hard C, it's a TH. Replace that C.
Thatha
Vakambalavu.
Okay. All right. You know what? I think sometimes I'm like, I know I've seen sometimes fan forums be like, they mispronounced this guy's name or something, or on commentary things. I'm like, guys, last names are hard, especially if they're from somewhere that you are also not from. Last names can be difficult sometimes.
Oh, definitely.
But it's but either way, so his try, I think it's I don't know, I think Sheridan's reaction to it is perfect. It's I don't know, what do you have to do this year to get a win? Because it just seems like there's just no luck at all. There's obviously, they lost this game by 7, right? So it's in theory, it could be closer if that try is not called.
If that try, was disallowed, would have been a tie. If Tomlinson didn't fumble that ball, there were a little.
There's a lot. Malcolm dropped what looked like a sure try too, and then there's a lot. It's just the bounces just are not going the Toronto Arrows' way this year. But when you do, Bryan, I guess when obviously the internationals, the tour to the UK that's coming up, and obviously the guys that are also representing Uruguay, it kind of created the necessity to bring some of these new guys in. Is do you think that mindset of the Arrows right now is we're looking at these players like Tomlinson, Knott, Foley, are they looking at those players as guys that could be on the 2022 roster, or are they just, these were the guys available, we have to put 23 guys on the pitch and we need bodies, so we found them?
Oh no, they're definitely taking a look at these guys with an eye to next season as well. You don't bring a guy, an Ireland under 20 guy with a Canadian passport in just for a couple games. They're having a look at him. If he looks good, then I would assume that they will offer him a spot next year. Remember, we don't know who all is not going to be coming back from the imports, the Uruguayan guys especially, and a guy like Joe Tomlinson. we've had, Steve Ing, Andrew Quach, and Jack McRogers, a really nice, strong core of young Canadian guys, but maybe it might be good to have a veteran presence at that position with the side. And he's in Canada, so I just think it makes sense to have a look at him. So I'm certain Alexandre Jeanlin, the prop as well, he's Canadian eligible. So definitely they are looking at next season as well with bringing these guys in.
I can also say from experience that being an athlete is a very beneficial thing to have on your application for permanent residency. So
is that how you got here? Is that did you lie?
Yeah,
You're a pro
yeah.
athlete? Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's how you know me. My name's Sam Malcolm, and I came from New Zealand. That's how I'm a permanent resident.
Well, okay, let's move on now, guys, because I wanted to get your thoughts, Bryan, about how this MLR season has gone. It's been a weird year again. COVID has really had an impact on how this season has gone. But we've seen fans return to the stands, which has been fantastic. We've had kind of the craziness that is the San Diego situation, the Toronto situation. How do you think this 2021 season has gone so far?
I think it's been fantastic. I think it's exceeded expectations. I know, certainly talking to some of the general managers ahead of the season, there was a lot of concern with the COVID issue. Pretty much everybody expected some games to be postponed, possibly canceled. They expected complications. So to get through, it was really that first half of the season that was going to be the tricky part when the pandemic was kind of still raging. So to get through that with just the one opening weekend, we had preseason games canceled, and it was pretty ominous. I think, Old Glory couldn't get a game in every time.
I'm pretty sure on this podcast we said with absolute certainty that there were going to be games canceled. I'm pretty sure we were confident in that. And yeah, it's been kind of a revelation, which has been fantastic.
So to see that, but also, the other thing at the beginning of the season, everyone saw this LA Giltini side and said, they're going to run the table. They've got, all these superstars, whatever. But, it's turned out it's been very competitive. The rest of the team or the rest of the league has kind of raised their standards a bit. They've challenged them. They've knocked them off a couple of times. The realities of a long season on older bodies kicks in. And we've seen pretty much parity across the board. A couple of teams that have really struggled, but even even Houston has had their moments this season. So overall, I think it's been absolutely fantastic.
Now, I'm interested because this is something that I saw on the MLR Reddit today. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. The coaching vacancies that are kind of popping up this year, especially with like the Free Jacks and LA. How do we feel about like kind of coaches and I don't want to say that they're using MLR as a stepping stool to get to the next level, but we've had two coaches have been announced that they're moving on to Super Rugby teams. Is this something that we should be concerned about? I think there's people that have two sides of the coin. One say, we're going to get competitive young coaches that want to come to MLR and say, I want to put my stamp on the league. But then the flip side of that is then they are most likely going to try and use this to find other jobs. So the consistency of a coach staying for more than a couple of years might not be there. How do you guys, I want to get everyone's opinion on this. How do you guys feel about this? Because this was something that I saw discussed on Reddit. Bryan, you go first. You're the guest.
Look, this is professional sport. Coaches move on in every league in the entire world. So this is the fourth year of a startup league in North America. To expect them to be able to retain absolute top tier talent, whether it's a player or a coach, is frankly ludicrous. We should be applauding these coaches for Coleman to jump from MLR. He's now going to go to Super Rugby. Who knows what he's going to do with the Waratahs? But can you imagine if he takes those guys to the playoffs or whatever? People are like, wow, this guy was an MLR. Maybe we should check out what's going on over there. Ryan Martin has done some exceptional work with the Free Jacks this year. Everyone can see it. And yeah, it's a bummer he's gone for sure. But everybody knows the deal. When you bring these guys in, that they could. Look at Sam Wuching. He's an American player. He's playing in MLR, plays out of his skin, and now he's off to Europe on another pro contract. We should be applauding this. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely that's just opening up another opportunity for someone else to step in there and fill that gap. So I have absolutely no qualms with coaches or players making the jump to other competitions.
See, I was really confused by the Rugby Network by posting that photo of him and then the whole background being football. I mean, it says football gear. And I'm like, is he going to play in the NFL, CFL, XFL?
It's a bit of gamesmanship. He's going to. I'll tell you guys, he is going to France. I don't know which club he's going to, but he is heading to France.
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
So,
listen, that's amazing.
So there you go, and that's going to be really exciting to see. Glad for him.
Is there an appeal to kind of like, because it seems to be like most of the North America, other than like, say maybe the guys that were already in the Premiership, say before MLR kind of started, it seems like France is kind of slowly becoming a bit of a go-to destination for North American players.
Well, I mean, unless your name is Stu Hardy, why would you want to pick, dusty London when you could go to the south of France? That seems like an easy
attention to Ardron's Instagram.
Hey,
motorcycle all over this beautiful country. Why does he want to go to greasy old United Kingdom?
I spent a month in England. Back at the World Cup in 2015, it was great. But no, I mean, France is such and the professional league there is such an eclectic place. There's people from all over the world playing in that league. The money is good. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. That's a massive reason for going. But the lifestyle as well is just not the same as it is in the Premiership. So I think that weighs in too as well. So yeah, I mean, that's just a decision that all these guys are weighing up.
I would say too that I also completely agree with you that it's a good thing that players and coaches are jumping from MLR to other leagues, whether that's, Wuching or Coleman or whoever else may be next down the line. It's just, I think it just gives like a lot of like credibility to the league. And it shows that, maybe some guys that, have been, had a bit of a tough time in say somewhere like New Zealand or Europe or South Africa or wherever they're playing, maybe like, maybe you can hope that as the profile of the league kind of grows, that you get seen by bigger teams, by bigger leagues that maybe you wouldn't have necessarily got that opportunity if you were a guy that was barely getting playing time. You can come to Major League Rugby, play like 70, 80 minutes a night at your given position and kind of help to kind of raise your own profile a little bit, as obviously we're seeing like a lot of guys kind of going to other leagues after. And I mean, coaches too, like I think even if the coach is there for 1 year, all those players learn something. Like it's 1 year of learning something underneath Coleman or Beal or Coleman or Martin or whoever else is going to go overseas. Like it's you get taught a lot. And I think even watching a lot of the Canadian or American players that are in the league, you can see improvements in like guys across the board just from 1 year of playing in Major League Rugby. And it's not always the worst thing too to get a couple different like inputs and insights on different views on like what you need to do to take your game to the next level either. So I'm sure like the next coaches that LA or New England may bring in, they're going to be just as good and or maybe not just as good, but they'll be able to help the players develop their game as well.
So
I was just gonna say, I think that one of the points of concern is that not for Sam Wuching, but for like say Darren Coleman going over, is that a lot of other players and staff as well have joined LA because Coleman was the head coach, and it's a question of will the remaining coaching lineup or front of house staff remain the same, or is that going to change? So
well, again, though, I mean, I don't think that's an issue specifically with Coleman. I think you're going to see that with every team. Every team will bring in a new coach to come in, and it doesn't matter what league or whatever it is. They're always going to bring in their guys. And you're right. Some guys from LA are going to follow Coleman to Australia. I'm sure a guy like Mahi Vailanu, that hooker, is probably going to jump at the Waratahs straight away. I mean, but that's the deal. I mean, exactly. They would have known that, right? So.
Yeah, I'm not saying it as a negative, because obviously a lot of the guys who were playing with Gordon came over to LA. So it's, you give and take. I think from a fan's perspective, it's going to be seeing, this team in 2021, they're the top of the West. And in the off season, their head coach is going to change. How many of the players are going to change? Will this still be a team that can compete? When the 12 confirmed other teams for 2022 are going to be like, LA, they had this, and this. That's what we need to make sure that we defeat
Yeah.
when we play them
I
next.
think-
And therefore they're not, I don't say they're not as competitive, because obviously they've lost games, but in the sense of if you're in LA and you're wanting from a Adam Gilchrist perspective, is that how do you ensure that this team remains competitive so that there is a growth of a fan base? Because you don't want to go like, say, the way of Austin in 2019 and then start losing all your games and then be struggling to even get a few seats. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that as a fan,
I actually want to jump in there and say that's probably what's going to happen is they're going to be a heck of a lot less competitive next season. But that's the deal with LA. I don't know how the fans, I consider myself a fan, whatever, but I don't know what people's expectations were of LA after this season. But most people, I guess kind of behind the scenes knew that LA was going to be really damn good this year, and next year we're not going to be the same team. So I think LA in this instance is probably a bad example to take, because Gilchrist himself knew damn well what he was getting into and what was coming next year. So that's just something he's going to have to deal with, as far as recruitment, getting a coach, and Adam Fryer as well, the general manager. But that was the deal for LA, is they were having this really big year with Giteau and Ashley Cooper and yada yada. But it's a 1-year thing, and they're just going to have to rebuild and start again next season.
I do find it funny that currently in the conference, what will be the conference finals, is LA's beaten every team in the West so far, and it's likely to be Utah. They have their final game in week 18, and then it's the reverse fixture possibly for the conference finals. But the team they're facing in the East for the championship final, either team has already beaten LA. And how much egg on your face is going to be if Adam Gilchrist has made this like superpower team just to guarantee that they could win the championship in 1 year and then lose it in the final. That's just my own Schadenfreude of what could be.
That's why you play the games, though. You don't
exactly.
You don't win on paper, right?
So we had Curry Hitchborn on a couple weeks ago, and he kind of voiced some of his concerns about where the league has kind of gone and some of the decisions they've made. What are some of your concerns going into the 2022 season? I know we still have a couple weeks left, but we're near the end of the season. Are there any concerns that you're worried about, Bryan?
Yeah, there's some operational things behind the scenes. Certainly, I think could use some work. I don't want to delve too much into those. I'm a communications guy, so my big thing is the communications from MLR has been putrid to just amateur at best at times. Announcing we're in the 4th year, we're still announcing teams like on game day lineups. That's absurd in a professional competition. So I think they have to take a major step up in communications and actually look like a professional organization next year. I just think they look amateur on that end right now. So that would be my number one thing for them to focus on in the off season, is get their communications and get their organization down, and then they can work on all the rest, the marketing, all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of that is trending in the right direction, but that side of things, I think has been really poor.
All right, well, let's move on now. We've had the luck of having the Olympic rosters being announced before we recorded, which is actually kind of nice, because sometimes it always seems to happen like the day after we record, news breaks out. So I wanted to get your thoughts on the Olympic rosters, both for the men and the women. The men will guaranteed play Fiji, Great Britain, and Japan, and the women will play France, Fiji, and Brazil. Bryan, what do you think about these rosters? Both of the women's roster is as strong as it's been for a long time, and the men have a good balance of, in my opinion, young players and also kind of the vets. Do you agree with that, or are you worried? Are you concerned? What do you feel?
I think that the rosters are pretty much as we expected. The guys team, I don't really know who from the was left out, who anybody really expected to be. I mean, maybe Zaruba, but he's been out for 18 months with a knee injury, had a couple surgeries to repair his ACL. So he just ran out of time, unfortunately. But I mean, it's a good roster. Some of these guys are a little bit older in the sevens scale of things. I mean, Nate Hirayama has been around for seemingly forever, but I mean, he's still a world-class player. So I think it's a good squad. I think the men's side is going to be a bit trickier because of the level of competition. I mean, that Fijian team is just going to be something else over there. So we'll see how they do. Obviously, the women, they look really strong. But I think the USA as well has a star-studded roster they've put out as well. So it's so tough in sevens. Anybody can beat anybody in the game. So it's so hard to make predictions. I think they're both good rosters. They'll both be competitive. I think the women probably a little bit better shot at a medal, but man, it's going to be tough. So I just wish them luck. It's going to be an exciting tournament.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think we can all say we're looking forward to it a lot.
I do have a question for you, Brian, just about rugby and the Olympics in general. Are you where do you stand on kind of do you think that if the Canadian or the American men's or women's team, either one of the four, if they're successful at these tournaments and can say win a medal or even win the whole thing, get a gold, do you think that can have a significant impact on the growth of rugby in North America? Or do you kind of think that maybe it just kind of falls on everybody watches the Olympics and you kind of check out a sport once every 4 years, and even if your country does well, maybe the impact doesn't necessarily carry over?
Well, I think we saw at the last Olympics, everybody was kind of drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit on the sevens, frankly, and the women did win a bronze. So, certainly we saw a boost in interest, a boost in just kind of recognition as a sport for rugby sevens, which was good, but certainly not what they were projecting and what kind of some people were preaching at the time. And so no, if they win gold, that would be a bigger deal, definitely. So that would be something worth watching. Certainly on the women's side, Canada or the USA, I think could win gold in that one. And hey, the USA men's, it's hard to say. They got so many good players in that one too, but they haven't looked as sharp lately. So hard to say, but our gold might be a bigger impact, certainly, but I don't think it's quite the level that people are making it out to be. I mean, sevens is a really festival atmosphere. So, I mean, we're still going to get people packing the house to see, the tournament in Vancouver, whatever. But I don't think we're necessarily bringing in this massive influx of players and money and interest from general sports fans in general. I actually think that, like MLR and getting the World Cup would be a bigger impression on North American sports, on rugby in North America.
So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, because for the first time in 19 months, 20 months, Rugby Canada actually has a test match this weekend. They're kicking off their 2-match tour of the UK. Bryan, this is something that we've talked about in the show, and Derek and I have butted heads about this. But I wanted to ask you, do you feel like the UK tour was the best option for Canada to restart their national program after a pandemic shutdown? And I wanted to ask you because, Derek and I are on two sides. Derek believes this is what's been offered them. They need to play rugby. Doesn't matter who's it against. And I'm of the thought that I feel like there's other competition out there. And if they're going to play it in Europe, I mean, Romania is playing an America's competitor. They're playing Argentina. I feel like there were other options out there that Canada could have gotten their feet wet with and maybe had a little bit more of a chance. I wanted to get your kind of your thoughts about this, decision to play the reigning Six Nations champion and the reigning, runner-up of the last World Cup.
Well, first, I think you have to say that it's not really a decision. When you're offered England and Wales in your Canada, you don't have an answer. The only answer is yes. It doesn't matter where the game is because those games just don't come along. So what's Rugby Canada going to do? Say, hey, sorry guys, we've been asking to play better teams, but we just don't feel like coming to play you guys. That's part of the, the whole thing. they voted for Bill Beaumont in that big election. I'm sure that was a little bit of the behind the table kind of conversations that were going on. So this is what they got. I mean, you want to play these big tests, you got them. Timing could not be worse. Let's be honest. And it's, but that's, I kind of commented on that on the Twitter today. It's really unfortunate timing for just about all these so-called tier 2 nations. We're seeing Tonga playing the All Blacks, and everyone's been clamoring to say, hey, let's see these guys play the Pacific Islands. And the bloody pandemic is still going on. They can't get their best players from Europe. They're scraping the barrel. So many players are exhausted mentally from the season. They're not committing. And it's just, it's really, really unfair timing. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles. It would have been nice to get a third match on this tour against a Romania or somebody, but what are you going to do? That's just the situation we're in.
From tier 2 rugby, tough weekend coming up. Georgia coming off the plane versus a strong South Africa team at altitude. The weakest Tongan team for years versus New Zealand. Canada not played for ages and a bunch of key injuries versus Wales. And the U.S. also not played for ages, also with injuries. They didn't include that, but that's also the case for U.S. versus England at Twickenham. So, I can make the argument that at least England has a ton of uncapped players. So maybe, cohesion might run into things. I think they've actually been training for 2 weeks, 3 weeks now. So maybe I'm just kind of blowing out gas at, it doesn't matter anyways. Eddie Jones has had them for a little bit longer than the US would have. It's kind of a brutal situation for everybody. Okay, well, let's get into this roster then for Canada, because unavailable for selection: Tyler Ardron, Kyle Bailey's got a broken hand, Matt Bukaboom, Luke Campbell, Nick Carson, Tyler Duguid, Evan Olmstead, Lindsay Stevens, Matt Tierney. You got some of Canada's best rugby players not available for selection, and also one of their rising stars in the sport, in Duguid. What is going on? Like, are all of those guys, like, is Ardron, Olmstead, Tierney, are they all that hurt? Is it the clubs are telling them they need to rest for the preseason? Like, what's going on? Because this is also happening, with Santiago Arata. He's deciding that he needs to rest up for the preseason, and he's not taking part in, Uruguay's matches that they're having coming up. So, like, what's going on in the background that we're kind of missing here?
I can tell you it's not a club thing. These are decisions made by the players themselves.
Okay.
They're not all necessarily injured per se, as in like Kyle Bailey, where he's actually got a broken hand and he's trying to play and wants to play, but just probably isn't going to make it in time, unfortunately. These guys are at the end again of a long season. They've had the pandemic thing, the whole season in France they've had to go through. They're pretty exhausted, but there's other, kind of things at play here where Canada's got this kind of block now, and this kind of, they're building, they had this tour, but down the road we've also got the qualifiers, right? And there's a lot to build towards. And, they're asking a lot of these guys. They really want them to commit from now straight through to the end of October. And if you're a guy, playing with a club team in France, first of all, you got mandated rest in between seasons. You have to have 4 weeks off between your season now and next season. So they got to take it sometime. And you're asking these guys to come now to come in at the end of their season. They're exhausted. I mean, all the energy that, Evan Olmstead just put into BRS getting promoted to the top 14. And now you're asking these guys to come in, slog away for a couple of weeks against England and Wales with no preparation whatsoever, beat their bodies up, and then, hang out pretty much straight through with the team to the end of October. That's just not realistic. And I think Rugby Canada really needs to sit back and look at what their expectations of these overseas pros are, because, these guys are getting paid money. Those are the guys, the clubs are the ones paying their bills. So you have to have a little bit of give and take.
I get that for like Ardron and Olmstead and Tierney, but what about a guy like Tyler Duguid, like a young guy that
Duguid is a little bit beaten up right now. He's got I can't remember specifically. I want to say, shoulder, but don't quote me on that. He is a little bit beaten up on that one.
Then that makes me happier than what you just said, because that to me as a fan would frustrate me. Is I get that for the older guys, the vets that have put in the time, like the guys that are on this list have put in the grimy work rate and hours that Rugby Canada has asked for them. I get that. But, and I actually pulled up our list when we talked about the last time you were on the show, we talked about how we wanted new blood in the roster and for the ARC. And yeah, it just frustrated me. I think it frustrated a lot of fans to see someone like Duguid be not be available, but then Will Percillier be available. So it's reassuring to know that it's not just rest or club mandated stuff. But all right, let's get into this roster. We do have some uncapped guys coming into this. Unfortunately, we should have had one more, but Spencer Jones unfortunately was hurt. What do you think of this lineup? We really don't have a designated 8-man other than Vicky Lani, who has played how many minutes of MLR this season? Maybe Corey Thomas. One of the questions that we got was about kind of the fly half situation. Is it Kelly? Is it Povey? Is it Nelson? I wanted to get your thoughts kind of about this situation going into, their first test match since the World Cup.
Yeah, the fly half question. I mean, we haven't had a fly half since 2011 when Andrew Monroe, finished up at the World Cup. It's been a rotating roster since then. We haven't been settled at all. And number 8 as well. We've had Tyler Ardron, and then who behind him? Nobody. Luke Campbell was a flanker who got turned into a number 8 by Kingsley Jones. And that kind of puts me back to kind of mismanagement of the squad, going way back to when Kieran Crowley was in charge. Between 2011 and 2015, we really jumped on the sevens bandwagon, put all our resources into that. So many guys who, I mean, if you look at the roster now, Harry Jones, Nate Hirayama, Connor Braid, Cooper Coates, now he's just switched over, but he's been training with the sevens program as well. Brock Webster has been training with the sevens. Why are all our number 10 guys with the sevens program? Why can't one of them play with the 15s? That's mismanagement to me. Number 8 as well, Admir Shivanovic, Matt Mullins. How many years of these? Jake Teal. These are all number 8s. Why are all the number 8s in the damn sevens team? So this is a problem that Rugby Canada has. It's frustrated me for years. And now we see ourselves in our situation. Ardron's not available, and hey, we're leaving a professional fly half, Shane O'Leary, at his, he just wasn't picked. Don't even get me started on that one. So
I feel like we also had this Shane O'Leary discussion the last time you were on, and no matter how well he does at whatever team he's on, the problem seems to exist that his relationship with the selectors is just not good right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine, whatever. I mean, Will Kelly, he's the next guy coming up, but how much time has he had in MLR as well? Is he ready to go play England? I don't think so. That's just where we are. And it's just, we've kind of, I think we kind of touched on it the last time it was on, but we're really in this transition stage right now. And we're really going to feel it in these next couple of weeks where it's just, we've got a block of kids who are coming up. Your Vicolani, great, is number 8, really powerful kid. He's played 10 minutes of Major League Rugby going into this test. These kids are going to be fine in 4 years' time. They're not going to be fine the next 2 weekends. So we just got to grin and bear it. And MLR is going to, have its effect. We've got over 60 pros. There's going to be more, if we expand another, if Dallas comes in next year, there's going to be more Canadians. If another team, if Chicago or somebody comes in, there's going to be more Canadians in. So it's just going to expand, and we're going to get better. We're going to start building that depth, but we're just in a rocky period right now. And it's not just fly half to worry about. It's the front row. It's number 8. It's pretty much across the board. So, that's just where we are.
Yeah.
Oh, my question in kind of hearing that and going with obvious, like the mismanagement with all the 10s and 8s that are playing 7s, and, hopefully they have a awesome performance in Tokyo. But what in your mind has to change at Rugby Canada? Is it just something as simple as like just being smarter with like the allocation of the actual talent itself? Or is there like a full like philosophical change that kind of needs to shift so you don't end up in situations where it's like our drawn can't play, so we have to go to like a 20-year-old that's played, very limited professional rugby experience against England?
there's a real disconnect between Rugby Canada and the rest of the rugby population in Canada. And I think we saw a great example recently, a terrible, unfortunate example with John Tate and the women's side, where we had, these women who've been making these complaints, and I can't remember which player off the top of my head posted on Instagram where she's saying, I actually, asked Rugby Canada to look into this and kind of help us out 4 years ago. Didn't get the support. Nobody came out to try and kind of facilitate this and maybe work with John and say, hey, can you just change your style? Nobody came out to check it out. There's a real disconnect in their expectations maybe of how this whole thing should work and maybe how it should work. So I think the whole organization needs to look at itself and make some changes. Maybe we'll see it, but the other thing you have to consider is, they don't have a lot of money. So it's not like they can go out and just hire this kind of manager and this kind of manager, this kind of manager. So there are some restrictions that are working against them, and I understand that, but I am frustrated with how they've done things over the past few years. And I think that's pretty obvious. But what can you do, really? I mean, that's something that the board is going to sort out. That's something that the different provinces need to sit down and decide what they want from the board, because they're the ones who put them there, and they're the ones who put all the management in place. So if they're not happy with what's going on, then it's up to them to make sure that things change.
So I think that's interesting, because we heard rumblings about this from Curry when he talked about kind of the shambles in which BC Rugby is in. He talked about how the guys at the top are not talking with the people trying to do the hard work at the bottom. We've had a change in leadership with Rugby Canada recently. I'm just going to pull up her name so I get it.
Sally Dennis.
Yeah, so Sally Dennis is now taken over a major leadership position. It sounds like Kingsley Jones has been given the utmost support from the board in terms of where this national team is going. Do you feel confident that maybe these worries can be put aside, and especially with I think one of the problems too of what you talked about, how one of the two most important positions in rugby has been mismanaged, is because they want them to stay fit and in a rugby atmosphere, and for the longest time, with no Pacific Pride and no Arrows, the most constant thing that was a pro contract overseas was sevens. So do you think with MLR, with the Pacific Pride, with having a consistent voice in Kingsley Jones, do you think that maybe these worries are kind of on the up and up, or do you think that there needs to be more to be shaken up?
Well, is there a consistent voice with Kingsley Jones? I think that might be a question worth asking. Remember, Kingsley Jones was renewed for 4 years before the Rugby World Cup. There was no performance analysis. There was no review of the tournament. He was just extended carte blanche, and who's overseeing him? No, I'm not saying necessarily that Kingsley Jones needs to be thrown out or anything like that, but there has to be some level of accountability and a level of oversight, and there's none over him right now. That's a problem to me. That's a structural issue. We saw it, and John Tate as well was the head of the women's program. Where's the oversight? That's
who does he answer to? There
you go. That's a problem. Rugby Canada can answer to the board on that, or the board can do whatever they think needs to be done there. But that's a major issue for me. We haven't had a high performance director or anything. We had Jim Dixon in there for a while. He was dumped, and then they just kind of didn't ever replace him properly or adequately or anything. Anyways, so that's just something that they're going to have to do. I don't know. A chairman's position they're not sitting there day to day. That's not Sally Dennis' full-time job. She's a lawyer. She sits on the board. They have a meeting. They make decisions. Alan Vanson is the CEO. He's the guy who does the day-to-day stuff. But again, he's more of a business guy to run the whole, to kind of manage the whole organization. He's not really a rugby guy, right? He's not a guy who can look at a national team and say, oh, we got these problems at these positions. That's not him. So I think there's a real gap at that position at the senior level in Rugby Canada.
So going back to the upcoming tour, what should the expectations of Canada be going into in Wales, England? basically no prep or no direct prep other than this week. Two of the best countries in the world. What should we really be expecting out of this?
You asking for a score line? Yeah, look, it's going to be so tough. I mean, these guys, they're uncapped players for England, but these guys are playing in the Premiership week in and week out. England has how many locks they can pick up. One guy falls, they grab another guy. McNally comes in, I've stood beside him in person. He's an enormous man, 6'7", 5,000 pounds. I mean, the guy is a brute, and he's like 10th on the list of locks or something like that. So the depth that England has at their disposal, even Wales, obviously they're much smaller, but look at the lineup they're putting out this weekend. Oh my goodness, Jonathan Davis, Ross Moriarty,
some half-penny guy. It's a little bit tough.
We're not comparing apples and apples here. This is we were wide apart.
Apples and crab apples.
Perhaps I need to. Perhaps I'll reword. The question that I'm at. I guess no one's expecting Canada to win these games, but what if you're like say in Kingsley Jones' shoes, what has to happen on this tour for you to look back on it in 2-3 weeks time, be like, that was actually pretty successful for us. We actually benefited from that. What has to happen over these next 2 games in order for it to kind of be a positive for Rugby Canada, despite what the score line's probably saying, and hopefully maybe the scoreboard's not running out of numbers?
Well, it's going to be a shock to the system, the pace of the game and the intensity that these guys are going to experience over there. So all we can hope really is that some of these young guys, or Quinn Nowity, or Will, Percillier, Ross Brode, that these guys pick up that intensity, and take that with them moving forward. They understand, they can see something in the game that they just pick out. I mean, people are kind of relating this to the England's tour of hell when they went to Australia. Took a extremely inexperienced team, got absolutely blown off the park. But hey, Johnny Wilkinson came out of that tour, and did all right for himself. So Josh Lucy was on that tour. So there was a few world champions who came out of that tour. So I'm not saying we're going to win the World Cup with these guys one day, but I think people can see that some of the young guys who are going, Will Kelly will learn a lot on this tour. So there is a lot to take out of it. Even just being in the environment in a couple of weeks, they'll have Rob Howley in person there to work with them. That'll be a big help for them. So, we just got to hope they learn stuff. A guy like Cole Keith, he's switching over to loose head prop. All of a sudden he's going to be scrummaging against some pretty tough competition. We just hope that, he takes that on moving forward, and we can build a foundation for a team, that can really maybe challenge, for automatic qualification to World Cup, something like that down the road.
Is he going to be there as a loose head or as a tight head?
No, he's going as a loose head.
Loose head?
Yeah.
They're committed to that? Okay.
I've said to the guys, I think possibly the best thing that can happen for some of these Canadian players is that there are scouts from United Rugby Championship, the top 14, the D2, even the Premiership. I know they've recently announced they're changing selection qualities, but even DTH Van der Merwe said Ben Lesage is too good for MLR. He needs to be playing in Europe.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with DTH on that one. I think MLR is a decent standard, and and it's not like Ben is scoring 10 tries a week or something. Now he's a very good player. Do I think he could compete, overseas in a Pro D2 or something? Yeah, it would be awesome to see him over here. So you're right. Hopefully, some scouts do look at this, and hopefully, they do have it in them. They do show something, and hey, it'd be great for one of these young guys to get picked up by a good European club. But at the same token, it's and Kingsley, I have to agree with him on this, has spoken this as well. It's one of those things where it's nice for a guy to be at a club out in Europe, but if he's going to be a starter in MLR, is that going to be better for his career to be out there actually playing games against pretty decent competition, or is he going to be wasting his time sitting on the sidelines playing in the Squires match? Or that's fine for a 19, 20-year-old kid, but not a 24-year-old starter for the national team.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what Jamie Joseph liked about having his players play in the Japan top league and not playing for the Sunwolves. It's like, I'd rather have all my guys starting for different teams than just all of them fighting for one roster spot on, one Super Rugby team. So I agree with you. I think that if I'd rather have them starting than sometimes making the bench or sometimes having a start. Okay, well, we're almost done here, and I wanted to say I wanted to end this on some positivity, Bryan. Who is someone that you're excited to watch from this roster? Because barring a few guys that didn't make it for selection, there are some young, exciting players that are going to be suiting up for the red and white. So, who is someone that you're really excited to kind of take their next step in their pro rugby career?
I think Michael Smith is really impressed with San Diego. He's a guy who maybe wasn't on people's radars. And you look at him, he's kind of this gangly, rangy kind of flanker, but he gets stuck in. He's really an intelligent player. He's all over the breakdown. And, and he was really tipped before the season. It was him and Siaki Vikalani who were getting, quite a few eyeballs at that high performance camp that was held last November. So he's a guy, Vikalani's been injured, so I don't really have a lot of expectations for him in this tour, but Smith is impressed. I think he's gone really well with San Diego, so I'm keen to see how he goes. I'm anticipating him to start at least one of these matches, so that'll be interesting. Certainly now it's interesting to see. He's kind of been up and down for New York. I'm interested to see where Kingsley plays him and how he goes.
You think he should be playing at center or at wing?
Yeah, he's a center for me, no question. Another interesting body who just got called up from UBC is Don Carson, who's a big dude. It looks like he's been picked as a blindside flanker, but he's 6'6", getting close to 6'7", and he's a big body. He's got room to grow. He's just one of these hard guys who runs into a brick wall and keeps moving kind of deal. He's just a big guy with a good engine on him. So I'm interested to see how he goes if he sees the field, but it's a good opportunity for him to go on the trip anyways.
And who's your first game against Wales? Who's your starting fly half
against Wales?
Yeah,
I think it's going to be Peter Nelson. I mean, I would be very surprised if Will Kelly starts. Not that I think ill of him or anything, but I mean, what's the point of bringing Peter Nelson if he's not going to start? So I would be very surprised if Peter Nelson doesn't start in these games, and then Will Kelly probably gets 25-30 minutes kind of deal.
All right, well, Bryan, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down with us and talk some Canadian rugby. So we really do appreciate this, man. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. Anytime, guys.
Well, guys, I want to again say thank you to Bryan Ray from America's Rugby News for joining us. We love having Bryan on. We love the work that he does. So, Bryan, the mini little clap. Thank you for joining us. Guys, let's finish off the episode by doing our predictions for this week. And I have to come clean because I believe I said it on the last episode that I would do something.
You don't have to believe. You 100% said 100%.
I said that I would bring the records.
You have one job on this podcast, Dan. You have one job.
I said, and I'm going to blame it on my second dose vaccine that maybe it's gave me COVID brain and I forgot about it. But I said that I would bring the records of the three of us in the Toonie into the viewers' ears.
Stu, can you remind me, is one of the side effects of the COVID vaccine memory loss or forgetfulness?
I can't remember.
All right. Well, there you go.
There you go. So I am sorry, Derek. Stu, I didn't make this promise to you. Okay, first game, guys. San Diego versus Seattle.
Oh my. Sorry, what was that second team that you said?
Seattle.
So the other team. The team that's not playing Seattle is the team that I take.
Yeah, San Diego haven't had the best record at home, but they have been playing two teams that are in the hunt for the players.
Fans back at Chula Vista this week for San Diego too.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm wondering why. Like, was there something else going on at Torero, or
I don't know. I did not look into it, to be honest.
It's just interesting.
I'm just trying to fill time because I don't understand what the explanation could be for not picking San Diego in this.
Yeah.
So. I don't know. I look at San Diego's roster and they're missing a few more guys on international duty than
it's because nobody wants to take
Seattle.
Seattle.
That's fair. Yeah, I'll go with San Diego.
Yeah. All right. And we know the rules
Brutal.
as always. Heads for home, tails for away. The Toonie picks Seattle.
Sorry, Toonie.
The Toonie also picks Canada this weekend.
Well.
Next game is New England versus New York. New England is the home team.
Well, the fortress has been breached by
ooh.
Nola. And New York, again, know that if they keep getting wins, they'll be able to overtake Atlanta and ensure that they get the home same. So I'm going to go with New York.
Oh, man. Yeah. You know what? I think I'm going to go with New England to kind of throw a little bit of a wrench in this playoff race.
Yeah, I was going to go with New England as well.
Yeah,
I think that their ego is bruised, and I believe this is their first game at their new stadium.
No, it's the last game.
Okay.
Round 18. So.
And this will be the last game at their old stadium. So they want to send it off on a good note. I think that they're going to pull off the win.
All right, then. Okay.
Toonie. What's the Toonie got?
The Toonie goes for the home side of the new boys.
Smart Toonie.
Okay, Toronto versus DC. I honestly, this is probably gonna. I mean, they've only got one other game after this, but out of all the games that they've kind of played since they've kind of had their home, streak, this is their most winnable game. I mean, DC is the closest to them in record. This is basically the battle for the bottom.
I think. I think, like I said earlier, I think if you look back at that New York game, I think they played pretty well overall. It kind of came down to just I think that John Sheridan play just kind of sums up their season. It's just, he comes across, the tackle's perfect. He gets his hand on the arm to force the drop. And, he gets up and he fist pumps. And Thakabalafu kind of looks to the skies like, I dropped that, darn. And the refs just don't call it. And I think in that moment, it's just I don't know, what do you got to do to buy a win?
I mean, not let a flanker run 60 meters.
Yeah, but you
try.
Yeah.
Also,
even by doing that, it's still a one try game, and then there's a big try that, and then but I look at Sam Malcolm had the ball, dropped it, looked to be in the.
I know what you're talking about is fate.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like
that Bonasso try was guys actively not.
Yeah, the Bonasso try was bad, but the Arrows had 4 other tries that just balls got dropped.
I know, but I can blame that on fate.
Yeah,
that Bonasso try there was a lack of effort. I think those are two different things.
Sure. The one play was really bad. But over the whole course of it, I'm just I think there's just a part of it that's just you're just
angry George and Cloud just floating over.
I think the luck's got to turn around at some point, and I'm still going with.
I mean, you've never. I don't know why you're making this so long, because you've never bet against Toronto.
I'm just. Yeah, I know exactly. I'm just explaining it. I think this isn't. Sometimes I pick Toronto just because I don't want to go against Toronto, but let's be realistic. There's been a lot of games that you could should have picked against Toronto. But at this point, it's just this to me is a very this is a winnable game. Win this.
Yeah.
The X factor is obviously the roster, and as we touched on earlier, how much they've actually played with each other.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because DC has had a rough season. They've had
a bad season too.
They've had injuries. Definitely, I mean, almost every team has, but they've had some key guys out. That Fernanda Schultz red card really hurt them, and it just seems that all their key cogs, Roberts Tanana, and even Robertson when he came back. Tusitala started off so hot and then has not really been up to form lately. it just seems like this is the year of expectations being kind of not that high. So it's interesting to.
So who's your pick after you're complaining about me taking a long
Toronto?
Response?
Toronto. I'm picking Toronto, but
I'm picking Toronto as well.
Nice.
And the Toonie is picking DC.
Oh,
if anyone can suggest to me either a writer or a Old Glory DC based podcast, basically I want to get a little bit more deep dive into what's going on with Old Glory, because
Road to Glory, that's what it's called.
Road to Glory. Okay, then I will love to listen to them.
It's on like Spotify and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, then never mind, everyone. Derek took care of it.
Right. If people have other suggestions, by all means, throw them at it. But yeah. The Road to Glory is their podcast.
Is it like the team does it, or is it like us, like fans do it?
I think it's like some sort of affiliated thing.
Okay. Well, no, I want to hear why things aren't going right. I don't want to hear like player profiles and stuff like that. So if anyone can provide me with the dirt, send it to me. Okay, last game of the weekend, LA versus NOLA.
LA versus no LA.
Oh boy.
There you go.
Boy, I'm the dad, and I'm the expecting one, and that was bad. Yeah.
That was bad. Stu, what did you think of that joke? No?
Yeah, that was bad.
I'm not going to dignify that with the response. I'm saying that I'm going to go with LA because it's back home. It is, I believe, one of the few. They only have 2 more games at home because their final game will be away. And, they want to be able to say, okay, the other teams in the West, you can pick off for who our opponents are going to be. And we'll go home.
I'm going to also take LA because NOLA's pack is gone.
Yeah, if this game happened at the beginning of the season, I would.
Yeah,
I'd be more.
If it happened last week, like, or if it happened 2 weeks ago, I could be like, oh, I could see NOLA maybe pulling this out. But
no Cam Dolan.
Yeah, Waldron's gone. Dolan's
gone. Harmon's gone. They're 2 starting props.
Yeah, they're gone.
Man, I didn't
Howard's
even think of that. Yeah, no.
Yeah, Howard's gone. Both the flankers are gone. Guerrero's gone.
Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah, no, the whole pack is. I mean, the pack, like all 8 of them are
pillaged.
Gone.
Absolutely, Devin Short. You better have the game of your life.
Yeah, no, like it's
God.
Yeah, it's they're gone. The whole pack is gone.
No Lockie Kratz.
In all, it's no Kratz. Who else is in the backs that's gone? I don't know, but
I don't think their backs are.
I'm not sure. But you know what? That's fair because Canada USA took the entire pack. That's
that's what people talk about. Is not only are they on the road for their last 5 games, they got pillaged.
Yeah, no, like
by USA pack, and Canada. So,
and it's not even so much like looking at the Arrows, who obviously like the roster got rated as 13 guys gone. Like at least there's some like mix of forwards and backs. Like NOLA has no forwards. Like NOLA is like there's like at your third, maybe depending on injuries and stuff, your third, fourth choice guys are playing in this game now.
Mm-hmm.
At a lot of positions too. Second, third, fourth, second choice at best. So yeah, for that's like I feel like no matter, I mean, maybe barring Houston or Seattle, I would pick anybody maybe against NOLA this weekend. But that's not really a knock against NOLA. That's just unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah, it's like they've been playing well recently. I mean, they just beat New England at home, which is unheard of. No one had done it yet, and they did it. So, yeah, just the cards aren't in their hands this weekend.
Yeah.
All right, who did the Toonie pick, Stu? Give her a flippy flip.
The Toonie has picked LA.
Nice.
Also,
even the team knows. Even the team.
Yeah, even looking at your shirt there, Stu. How do you feel about Alwyn Jones?
I don't want to talk about it. I think it is. I mean, This was a test match because they were playing a tier 1 opposition. So surely he should get a 10th cap for the Lions, right?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Does that count?
Yes.
Does that count? Yes. Does that count?
He was
did
playing
the
for the
Lions
Lions against a national team. He should get a cap.
Is that how that works? Or do you only get the caps for the 3 games of the series?
I know that the Lions played against Argentina on a previous tour, and it was retroactively made a cappable game. So
Sure.
I think.
Well, isn't that the thing with Halfpenny this weekend too? Like he's playing his 100th cap, but it's like his 96th for Wales, and then he's got 4 for the Lions or something. So his total is 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I say it's his 100th cap, and then in 4 games time it'll be his 100th Welsh cap. Because if you can pivot an event around sport, then by all means.
Canada's got guys that have played 15 minutes in MLR, and then we got 100 capped future Hall of Famers rolling out for Wales. So
yeah, I think the thing with Alan Wynne-Jones is like the realization of, he's still one of the greatest players on the pitch, on any pitch, but he is in the autumn or the fall, I should say, of his career. This is an injury that could have happened in the Pro 14. It could have happened in the Rainbow Cup. It could have happened playing in the Six Nations earlier this year. It just happened to be at this time. And, his contract with Wales and the Ospreys ends at the end of next season. It may be the time for him because I think realistically, he's not going to be picked for the next World Cup. It's the time to say, I want to go out on my terms. I want to do it my way. I want to see out this contract. I want to still be able to, play with my daughters when they're growing up and they're learning how to play rugby. So, maybe not going to South Africa, maybe a benefit in the long run, because if, say, he had, a bigger injury during the test matches, then you'd be like, oh, okay, I would have picked this a shoulder injury against Japan instead.
Yeah.
So
I was just happy we were able to watch it.
Oh,
yes. God, yeah. Like classic North American rugby media deals, the twilight of it happening. We get the ability to watch it. So
on the British and Irish Lions website.
Yeah.
Or whatever that actually. I still don't even know what it actually is.
Premier Sports.
Yeah.
They're the ones that carry the Pro 14 or now United Rugby Championship as well, and in the UK the Top 14. So they're branching out.
Nice.
But when you compare it to the UK and on Sky Sports, they now have Sky Sports Lions, an entire channel dedicated to the Lions tour.
Wow.
So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm like I said, just happy. Nice to see the Zone getting the Canada tag.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting given TSN's history with Rugby Canada, and especially with their newfound relationship with the Arrows.
Again, I'm just of the mind is like
I wonder if this is more of a relationship with England and Wales, the Six Nations, than it is with TSN, and DAZN said, no, we'll take these rights, and TSN's like, all right, we don't have to put the work into it.
I'm not sure what the difference is. I'm just I'm happy though that like whether it's DAZN, TSN, Sportsnet, like I think the Lions thing, I'm happy that I'm able to watch it, but I also can't help but feel it's like, oh, casual fans aren't stumbling across this.
No,
there's no way. Right, especially at like the $60 price tag, casual fans aren't going to stumble across this. At least if you put the games on TSN or DAZN. As Dan, I think you mentioned, I haven't seen it yet because I just haven't looked. But you said there's like a little preview thing.
Yeah, there's a little fun little preview for the Wales and Canada game, which is great. And we're going to be able to see all the US test matches.
Yeah, it's cool.
And then the Japan versus Ireland test match, which is great.
Yeah,
I mean the window is much smaller when you're talking about DAZN compared to TSN, because it is still a paid subscription, and you're basically trying to market yourself to sports fans.
There's still a lot on DAZN. That's like,
For sure.
I know it's
for
different,
sure.
like from country to country, but it's like you get all the there's a lot of boxing, there's baseball, like the MLB's on it.
I mean, the
NFL
Canadian basketball qualifier for the Olympics is on DAZN.
They're on it right now.
So for sure, it is what it is.
There's a lot of reasons if you're a sports fan to have a DAZN account.
In my opinion, as a rugby fan, this is a great thing. I want DAZN to have as many rights as possible, because eventually we want to get to a point where there is, like, look at what NBC Sports and Peacock is doing for the States right now. Like, they have almost all of the rights to the majority of the big rugby tournaments, right? So that's what you want in Canada.
Earlier this year when I was at work, a guy like came up to me and asked about the Six Nations just because he saw it on DAZN and turned it on for a bit and was wondering kind of like what the significance of the tournament was. So like DAZN definitely has like a reach.
Yeah. And like the thing is like,
so I'm psyched to see it on there.
We've talked about this before, but like if you're a rugby fan in Canada, in order to watch as much rugby as you want, you have to have TSN for the Southern Hemisphere and for the Arrows, and it used to be for Rugby Canada. You needed Sportsnet World to watch the Premier League or the Premiership sometimes,
and any league if
you're a rugby league fan, you needed that, and then you needed DAZN for the Pro 14 and for or I guess the United Rugby Championship.
The URC.
URC, and then the Six Nations.
The name next year again too.
Yeah, so I'm not going to get too tied to it. So I'm just saying that this is another step towards a more unified viewing ability for Canadian rugby fans. So
I like it.
Maybe we might have less fans kind of stumbling into rugby because it's just on TSN.
I don't think you would though. Like I think a lot of people have DAZN, and like bars have DAZN now too, right?
For sure. Like but if I'm disposable income, if I'm 40-year-old Jim from Aurelia and I'm waking up and having my coffee and I flip on TSN and at 8:00, Canada's playing England. Oh, okay. Well, let's put that on, while I'm drinking my coffee. Like that's more likely to happen than if it's DAZN. I know DAZN is a very popular app and streaming service, and that there are more. It's growing as a product in North America, and I love the product. I'm just saying that one has a bigger impact than the other. But again, we're just happy the TAM games are being we're able to watch them.
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
Also,
it's gonna be a busy next couple months.
Also, I'm just looking at our script, guys. Martin Colin asked where is Avery Oiteman, and Bryan. I didn't ask Bryan because he kind of answered it already on Twitter. And he's still in Wales.
Yep, still at Cardiff Uni. And
he's been at Wales, at Cardiff, Met Uni, and injuries have precluded him from playing over there. But that's all anyone really knows about Avery. Okay, guys. That's gonna be it for tonight. Once again, thank you to Brian Ray for joining the show. If you guys want to listen to more of our podcast episodes or go or watch them on our YouTube channel, all of our episodes are available. We've had some great interviews leading into the season and a couple during the season. We just had Curry Hitchborn of UBC on the show. And if you just kind of wanted to kind of look back at some of the games that the Arrows have played this season, we've recapped them all. So feel free to go on to all the podcast platforms. If you have any questions for the show, go to the Gmail, the Rouge Rugby podcast at gmail.com. Email us, send us your questions because we're always looking to answer our fan questions. So, gentlemen, it's all about this is Battle of Nutrition. Take your time.
Battle of Nutrition
with DAZN. The great thing is you can replay
Battle of Nutrition. Like
nutrition. It's like you got to take
attrition.
Your time.
No,
Battle of attrition.
Not nutrition.
No, I kind of mixed the words.
Dan's on a new
nutrition.
diet. Being a
Yeah,
new father,
exactly.
he has to have certain foods.
If Canada eats better than Wales,
No.
they're gonna
See, what
win this
happened
game.
is I combined the two words. It's even worse. I said nutrition,
oh my goodness, dude,
which is
that
even worse than what
Wow,
you guys thought I
yeah.
said.
the
Oh, boy.
you know what? That's the Brian Ray's not gonna get it, so I might be confused when I tag it to him. But Battle of Nutrition is the episode title now.
All right, that's fine with me. What I was trying to get at is there's a lot of rugby. Pace yourselves, drink some water, which apparently I need to do, and enjoy the copious amounts of rugby.
Battle of Nutrition. Oh man.